Hey everybody. Today we're going to load our template file into our program. It's an HTML file. We're going to use some Rust and we're going to load that into a string. So we're inside our main function here. And the first thing we want to do is just create a string and initialize it, and it's going to be our template string. I'll explain this here in just a second. Okay, so actually I do want to go back, take a step back here to line 27 here. This, where we're making this pages object variable. So I wanted to kind of just extrapolate on this a little bit because I didn't in the last video, and I think maybe I should have. So because this is a little bit tricky here. So we're using the CRD JSON. That's these. That's in this. It's one of the dependencies we added to our project. And that has a function called fromString that takes a string that's formatted, with typical JSON formatting, which is like that, and then you have your key, then your value. Something like that. So if we put that in a string, and we did that, right? We have this JSON string, then we can use this fromString to convert this into this data type here, which is page, which you may be thinking, well, we need it all into all of this, right? We have the title in our map.json file. Where is that file here? Here it is. So we have this title field with the value of home, we have link with the value of false, so on and so forth, and we have two of those. Well, here's how it all kind of maps out. So each of these is a page, right? So we have this pages array. So each index in this array, or each item in that array, is a page, okay? And we're indicating that here in our type, right? I just called it an array. It's a vector. In Rust, it's basically an array. A vector is like an array, but it's if you're gonna have your own data types in there, basically, or I can't remember exactly what the definition, the exact definition of a vector is, but it's similar to an array. And so anyway, we have this vector of page details. Okay, so we're populating that page vector with the JSON string inside this page vector, or this page, structure. Struct is page details, which is this struct. So it's actually kind of nested in there. And so that's how that CRD JSON actually determines that. It sees that a page is made up of these things, and it deconstructs this JSON and puts it into that vector of page details, which is the page. Okay, so anyway, back to this. We have our template string. Okay, so we're just declaring a mutable. That means it's changeable. We can change it. It's a template string. That's just the name of our variable there. We're declaring it as a string type, and then we have to initialize it. So we're just putting an empty string in there, and we're using the .to_string function to make it a string rather than I can't remember what that's called. Oh man, my mind is blanking right now. But a string, not constant. A string. I don't know. Anyway, we have to use this .string function. Actually, maybe I could. Let's see what happens if we just run the program like this. It might give an error that'll make me trigger my memory here. Literal, string literal. I remembered it before it even ran. Yeah, so see, we expected a string because we declared it as a string, but what we just gave it here is this, which is a string literal. So we do this to turn it into a string from that string literal. So that's just basically initializing that variable, that template string variable. And then we got to do some looping here, because we have our pages object. That's this right here, where we used the serial deserializer to convert that JSON into objects, into this data type here. So we have that array. So for each in pages objects dot pages, which is this, right, the vector of page details, dot length, which is a function just saying get the length of that vector. So for each in from the beginning of the vector to the end of the vector, and that's our for declaration. Let page details equals pages object dot pages each. Okay, so just to explain that a little bit, we just declared this page details constant immutable variable, and we're gonna each time this loop goes through, that page details is going to get whatever number we're on in that pages vector. It's going to get the details for that. So page details is going to contain this data structure for one index. So it's going to be one of these guys here, just one of them. So it'll do that one first, then it'll do this one. Okay, and then let template equal page details dot template. So now we have our page details, right? Which is one of these guys. It's an instance of this. And we have our template field. So that's how we're getting that right there. And then if template equals true. So what we're doing here is looking at this field. If this template field is set to true, then we know that's our template, right? Right now our map.json file doesn't even have a template. That's something we're going to have to add. In fact, I might just add that right now, just so I don't forget and wonder why we have an error later. I'll have to create a template file as well. Okay, so there's template.html. Let's create a file. Where are we at? There's our map.json file. I might have to change where those are too, where these files exist, because the relative links, just get a little tricky sometimes. Template.html. Okay, and then let's open that up. And I'm just going to copy and paste a little HTML template in here. It's pretty simple. It's just basic, If we, this is commented out right here, this part, but when we upload this to, when we run this page, we want to tell it what our base URL is, especially if you're using GitHub Pages. It just makes those relative links work. So, but for right now, if you're just running this, without GitHub Pages or just off a server or something, you don't necessarily need that. So doc type HTML, we have our HTML tag, which our end HTML tag, our head tag, our end head tag, our body tag, our end body tag, and then we got just some, just saying we're UTF-8, the title of the page, or the title of the template, I guess, and then a link to our styles, our CSS style sheet, which we don't have that created right now either, and that's another thing we're just going to copy in because it's separate from this project. But then we have our body, and we have this div with the ID of top left heading. So we just use that to identify how we style it in our style sheet. And with a link, or a link index.html with my name there. And then we have our top left menu, which is actually in curly brackets, right? So our code, we're going to use our code here to insert content into that curly brackets. And then same with in our main area here, we're going to use some code to insert some content into this insert HTML curly bracket section. So anyway, that's our template, and we're linked to that now with our map.json file. So we have that in there. So if it finds template, if it finds an item in this with template set to true, then we want to get the template path. Okay, so we have, if it is a template page, right? Template path gets set to our pages object, or reference to our pages object rather. Page, the one that we're currently on, right, which it would be the template one, dot content. So that's another thing in our data structure here. And if you look in our JSON, our map.json file, that is just a relative URL, relative link pointing to where our template file can be found. That's our template path. And we have our template string, which we declared up here. We're going to set that to, we're going to use our file stream library again, string template path. Okay, so this read to string function, it's part of this FS library, and it takes one argument, and that is the a link, a relative path, or a absolute path to the file that needs to be read, that needs to be converted into a string. And then the output of this function is a string, right? It returns a string, and the output of that is going to go into our template string variable. And we'll do an expect here. So if there's an issue, we're going to say error loading HTML template file. And then once it finds once this whole thing here hits that template file, there's only ever one template file. So once it finds that template file and loads it into this string, we're just going to say break. Once we can, and what that's going to do is knock us out of this for loop. So we're done with the, we don't have to loop through anymore. It can save computation cycles a little bit. Probably not going to save much in this case, but it's good practice anyway, just to break out of that. So that is it. Let's put the colon there, and then let's just do a little test here. Oops. We're just going to print our template string, and let's get rid of this print here where we're printing our JSON string. Okay, just comment that out. Okay, so let's run it, see what happens. Uh-oh, we got an error. Error structuring JSON to page. Error key must be a string. Oh, here we go. I think. What we got? Oh, it was my bad right here. It's in our JSON file. Okay. So now, I think we're good now. Let's try this again. Let's clear this. Oh, not quite. What else is going on here? Oh, jeez. Little things, right? Little things. Just needed the quotes there, I think. Let's try it again. All right, there we go. So now it printed what we told it to print, which was, if we look, we wanted to print our template string, right? And here's our template file. It starts with this doctype HTML. There it is, doctype HTML, and then the new line, and then the HTML that we have in there, then the new line, and the head that we have in there, the head tag. And if we look at that again, HTML head tag, so on and so forth. So good. So we're printing our template string, and that's a good place to stop for now on this one. We're now loading our HTML template file into a string, and in the next video we're gonna build some code that will generate our menu items in this. So if we look in our template file, we have this menu. We're gonna loop through our pages here, our page details, and we're going to use these indices to make a menu, and then we're going to insert that menu into this portion of our HTML template. That'll be the next video. Stay tuned, and thanks for watching. Peace out.